I'm Dr. Pete Economo, the East Coast psychologist.
And I'm Dr. Nikki Rubin, the West Coast psychologist.
And this is When East
Meets West.
Well, I know that you and I back in our day would be really good dancing and listening to music, right?
Yes, yeah. Back in the day. Back in the day. Yeah.
God, I'm aging myself. And so here we are looking at now as psychologists, the impact of music on behavior and emotion and everything else. What's up, Nikki?
Yeah, no, I'm excited to talk about this today because, obviously, well, we're not musicians, we should say. However,
You're
we
not?
are. No, oh, terrible.
Do you have any music talent?
No, I mean, I like group dance. Like I did a lot of dance growing up, but I didn't. I took piano lessons for a long time, but I was just not very skilled at it. I just like my piano teacher. She was so nice, so I kept taking it, but I was not very.
I took saxophone lessons.
You did. That's really cool.
During elementary school.
It's very Bill Clinton of you.
Didn't stick.
I know. I took violin also in elementary school for
me too.
But that I really hated. I did it for, I don't know, I think it was like a month or two, and I
was not
stopped.
patient.
Yeah, it's
actually, I remember during the violin, she was a PhD. She was a doctor. She had a doctorate.
Oh,
so
wow.
I was always so confused that this doctor woman came to my house to teach the violin. I didn't know that you could not be a physician and be a doctor.
Well, and here we are. Two non-medical doctors here. Well, so to that point, Pete and I are not musicians, but we are consumers of music.
We are consumers of music. And so today we're going to discuss some of the impacts that music can have on how you feel. And so, I mean, I guess let's just look at what's like your top playlist that you listen to, maybe? Can we start with that?
Sure. Well, we've mentioned a little bit about this before. So
your memory is ridiculous.
My old elephant brain. I always actually tell people I'm not cool about music at all. I'm really not. Like, I don't know, like, well, one, because I'm not a musician, and then two, I don't like follow a lot of new stuff. But I've mentioned before, I love, my top music is like 90s hip hop.
Oh, we have said that.
That's right. We have said that. But I also like 80s. I love 80s pop.
Do you use like this
rock,
and we don't have a sponsor, but like, do you use Spotify or Apple Music, or what do you use?
I use Spotify. I tend to use Spotify.
Okay.
And I like, but even that's where I'm not cool. It's like, I really feel like I just discovered making playlists on it in like the last.
Yeah, but why even make a playlist? That's how I feel about that.
Oh, because it's like certain songs I want to listen to. Like, I mean, I like the random ones, but I'm like, I do enjoy making playlists.
I think this is where you and I are lazy. That's actually a big difference. Wait, you would make a playlist?
Yeah, I do make playlists.
God, no.
But I'll make like one. But this is how lazy I am. I make like one for the seat. I'll be like, they're not very creatively titled. It would be like fall 2021.
Just whatever you're in the mood for right now in the fall 2021.
Yeah.
This is how not creative I am. I just listen to all the ones that other people create. I've literally I made one playlist in the 10 plus years I've been using Spotify.
So in the service of talking about like what music does for us as consumers, like what is it like for you when you like find a playlist like you really like? For me, it's like when I create one, what does it do for you emotionally?
Well, I heart it and then I maybe try and figure out how to get back to it, because I also don't always revisit the ones that I heart.
But those are behaviors. What does it do for you? What does it do for you emotionally?
Well, I think I seek the music depending on what I'm feeling. So that's an interesting thing I want to talk about. I'm curious actually what you think of this, because I actually don't know the science of this. But why is it that if we're sad, we listen to sad music, and if we're like going to the gym, we listen to upbeat music? Like, do we know? Do you know any science around that?
I don't know any science around the music of it specifically, though what I can say is that it is just, if we think of listening to music that aligns with the emotion we're feeling, that is going to fit very nicely into what we've discussed on the podcast before, which are the action urges that are hardwired into each emotion. So, when we feel sad, the action urge is to withdraw. When we feel angry, the action urge is to fight. When we feel scared, the action urge is to run away. So there is this hardwired tendency to kind of do what an emotion is telling you to do. And music pulls for that, because music has emotional influences and connotations. So, sometimes that can be helpful. Like when you're saying, if you want to go to the gym and you're, that's sort of energizing and maybe joyful, you might be drawn to joyful, energizing music. Though in third wave cognitive behavioral therapies, we actually, Pete and I, when we're working with patients, if someone's struggling with depression, one thing we're going to tell somebody when they're making a list of like coping strategies, we'll say, do not listen to sad music, right? Do not, because what that's going to do is actually exacerbate what it is they're already feeling. We want them to do the opposite, right?
Well, that's opposite action.
Correct.
I'm going to push you on that, because I don't think I would say to someone, don't do it, because I think that's why I liked Buddhism, because Buddhism told you what to do. But as a raised Catholic, I was told what not to do.
Right. Well, sure. Fair. Well, I was going to say, so Buddhism, right. Though as a behaviorist, we will say, like, I'll say, don't,
yes.
I will say that, because I'll say if someone's
don't
really
eat the
depressed,
Oreo.
yeah, well, I would say like, don't, I'm gonna say, I don't want you to do that. Like, I want you to actually go listen to something, or watch something like a TV show that's soothing or funny, right? Well,
so it's funny enough that the one playlist I did make is Gym Dr. Pete. So it's just for the gym that I just
for the gym.
And there's a bunch of 90s music in there too.
Yeah, of course, as to be expected, right?
So you would actually tell clients, hey, if you're sad, don't listen to sad. Notice the urge to listen to sad music and maybe try and listen to like something a little bit more calming, or.
Yeah, I think it's going to, and look, it's going to depend on the context, right? It's not that I'm going to say across the board, you're never allowed to listen to sad music if you're sad, right? It's more like if someone's depressed, we really don't want them to engage in behaviors that's going to increase dysregulation, right? So I would exactly say that. I would say, I want you to be mindful of the urge to do it. And we're actually going to focus on other behaviors that are opposite action to begin to help regulate what you're feeling.
Yes.
And music, and music is powerful, right? It can elicit such strong emotion. I would encourage listeners to think about not just joyful music, but like, think of, for example, I'm not, like I said, I'm not cool about music. I'm not, not expert about it, but like classical music is a great example. Like and I don't know anything about classical music. And there have been times where I've gone to listen to it and it hits me in a way that it's like overwhelming.
Well, there's research that found that, I guess it was Van Del Tol and Jane Edwards, they were trying to find out about like why it is that people listen to it. And so what they found was that connect. So this is interesting as a behaviorist, it was the connection to the feeling, to kind of re-experience the feeling, is why people might seek it. So again, as a behaviorist, we're saying perhaps that's not the best experience.
It's like it'll depend, I guess, right?
It always depends.
It always depends, because it's funny that that's what you're bringing up, because I was just thinking, for me, I have a lot of learned associations with certain music, right? Like there's some music where I'll be like, this artist or this song is like some of the best times of my life, or it's like times like parties in college or things. That was
one of the other main findings, was the memory trigger.
Yeah. For me, actually, I'm curious if this is the same for you personally. The strongest memory triggers for me are music and then smell, like scent.
Yeah, I would probably say music. Less sense. Sense a little bit, but I would say music for sure. I think you listen to things and it just brings you right back to that moment. And so, I think if nothing, that's the power of mind. And I think if for a listener, everyone has experienced that. There's not a human who hasn't.
No, because again, even if you're somebody that, again, like Pete and myself, right? If you're not a musician, like music has been around in human cultures for as long as humans have been around, right?
That's right.
So we've always been, using sound as a way to express ourselves, connect with other human beings, right? And, potentially, increase emotion for, for better or worse here.
Yeah. And so one of the reasons that I wanted to do this topic today, listeners, is because as I was driving, coming into the office to record today with Nikki, and I was listening to some Tibetan sound bowls. And so I'm also not cool, and you're definitely cooler than I am, but I'm definitely not, but I'm not cool. So that I just was on Spotify and I just kind of, whatever I'm in the mood for. And I was like, wait, I always do meditation or Zen or spa. Like, those are like my top 3 words are probably often meditation, Zen, or spa. And so I was like, let me try Tibetan, let me go different. And I went to Tibetan and these bowls popped up and I was like, I just put that on. And it was just really, really relaxing. And it reminded me of this study that found, Marconi Union. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I haven't actually.
So I'll put that in the description, but Marconi Union, this song, Weightless, it was studied and by the Mind Lab International, and they found that that by people listening to this song resulted in a 65% reduction in the participants' overall anxiety and 35% in their usual physiological resting rates. So like they also studied the physiology of it.
That's so interesting. Well, and this is where, music, we're obviously going to have to also talk about the impact just of sound in general, right?
So we'll go there now then.
Well, yeah, no, I know. Give me a minute.
I'm sorry. Go.
You better do it right in a second. I'm like, I am. So, so music obviously is, there's creativity involved, and it's like a conscious production of sound. But sounds just like Tibet, it's like Tibetan bowls. It's like like the bowls. It's like, would we call that music or would we call it sound? It's like, then I start to think about Om, like what you chant in yoga.
Yeah.
Which Om is, and I'm gonna forget the hertz, the decibel. It's like supposed to be. My understanding is that aligns with like the sound of the universe. Like there's some consistent number that is recorded scientifically across certain situations. Yeah. So that sound has an impact on our brain waves, right? Like that it's supposed to soothe things. So, I think that's very interesting. It's like, I start to think like we're wired in that way, right?
Yeah. Well, also, I guess what's coming to mind to me as you're speaking is probably this definition, which might be from the IQ testing, that it's rhythm. Like the definition of music is about rhythm or sound or whatever. So the sound would also be music.
Yeah, I'm just laughing because I was like, we're really showing how inexpert we are in talking about this. So, but again, I think that's why maybe helpful to have this episode, because we're not actually talking about music as experts. We're talking about it as humans who consume that, right?
Right.
Obviously, we're weaving in some of the psychology here.
Yeah.
Is there music, like any styles of music that are associated, for example, in Buddhism, or is it more sounds that the focus is on?
Well, there is music called Kirtan, and Kirtan, which I'll also just put in the description, is actually really beautiful for listeners that are looking for, meditative practices without sitting in silence. And so Kirtan is a meditative practice from the East. I don't know that the origins are from Buddhism per se, but certainly from Eastern traditions, where there's chanting and it's very rhythmic. It is singing. And so you've likely done it in one of your yoga retreats.
Yeah, no, I'm sure I have. I mean, I've definitely done chanting, though that tends to, because yoga tends to grow out of, Hindu traditions. There's sort of, it's more aligned with that. But that, of course, makes me think how chanting and singing again exists across all religious and spiritual traditions, right? Like in Judaism, there's a cantor who, it's not just a rabbi, there's a cantor who leads the singing specifically, right? Yeah. And so
probably all churches.
Yeah,
or places of worship.
That's what I think. I mean, because I think it speaks to just how inherent it is in human culture, right? Like that we sing and move and want to both like emote, right? Like let out and experience and consume this like beautiful sounds, actually.
Well, and I think what comes to mind also is in the Zen practice that I do with my teacher, we do chant as well, but in like a singing way. There's often somebody who sings or so that's also very similar. And the chants are like, they're teachings as well. So they're like the Heart Sutra, or, how to like connect with your heart. And, it's really like the Diamond Sutra. So there's sutras, which are also parts of singing, chanting. And so we're seeing that, like you just said, that, and you'll often read that music is the universal language.
Totally. Yeah. And also for some people, it can be something spiritual. Obviously we're talking about, the practice in religious or spiritual traditions of actually singing or chanting. Though it's funny because I was recently I was at a concert the other week with a friend, and
you did?
Yes, at the
Oh,
Hollywood Bowl. Yeah, my first time back in
cool.
a while. And we were having a discussion after about this friend. Neither of us are singers. We can't sing. But just, watching the artist, we were saying, it made a lot of sense that if, I've read a lot of and seen a lot of interviews with artists that are vocalists that will say or lyricists too, I guess they feel like they're channeling something. Like that has been a constant. I mean, have you heard, I've like heard that a lot. They'll say like, I don't know. It's like, it comes through me.
Absolutely.
Right? Like the sound or the words or the music that they're writing. And I haven't had that experience because I'm not musical in that way, though that makes sense to me, just being somebody listening to it and watching someone perform.
Yeah. Well, and maybe because if you've ever listened to a song that triggered a memory and you're really connected with, and maybe you cried, I mean, that in and of itself is that kind of coming through you. And I think probably every listener has. And, there are also impacts, like music can improve cognitive performance. So it's interesting. It's like a nice dialectic where you probably see this, that a lot of times people, one of the first things they do when they go home is like turn something on, turn CD or music on. And then if we're practicing mindfulness, I'll say, just notice that and maybe try to like observe that for a minute before doing it. Maybe see what comes up in the silence. But there's also evidence that like working with some background, like you said, classical music. I often go to like some of these, like if you go to like Marconi Union channel or like new age type music, or even brain waves. You mentioned about Om. I think Om may be an alpha. I was trying to look that up as we were talking, but I'm not that. But I think it is. I'm not that smart, but it is. I think it's like 8 hertz is like alpha, and I think it's
yes. There's the theta waves too. I mean, this is where
alpha, beta, theta, delta. It's just, you and I were never in sororities or fraternities, so
no,
we didn't learn. But I'm Greek, so I should know better.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But it's so again, there's just, I think what we're really highlighting here is that there's something universal about human connection to sound, and I might even say extend this to our animal cousins, right? Because I know they've started to study some things with like playing certain music for dogs, right? Obviously animals don't necessarily, that we know of, I guess, make music, but they do respond to sound effectively,
Yes.
I actually, this is like one of my favorite studies that I read a long time ago, which was it's funny, of course, it was with rats, and apparently there's like a certain way you can like rub a rat's like belly, and they'll like basically you're tickling the rat, like it's done in like a playful way, and they'll make sort of like a rat giggling sound, I guess.
Aww.
And then the study was they recorded that and played it for other rats, and they found it, and the other rats found it soothing.
Isn't that
and I was like, wow, it's amazing.
It's powerful, and all these things, it probably links to the neuroscience, and so maybe we'll have a guest on for that, but I think we're already coming to the end on this discussion around music. I don't know, before we end, how are you feeling as we're talking about music? I
actually feel kind of joyful, I think. And I think maybe that's, I think it's because Anna, soothe, probably because it's like, as we've been talking, it's been cueing memories and thoughts of music that I enjoy listening to. And, maybe I need to make another playlist.
Oh my God. And be sure to share your playlist with me, because I'm the lazy one over here who doesn't make it. But
I will.
But yeah, I think you've probably cued some memories, or maybe you're also just thinking about petting that rat.
Maybe that too. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I mean, I think just, for listeners, just consider whether or not, the role that music plays in your world and your life. There is research that shows it improves memory. You can also sleep better, manage pain, improve mood, and just notice the role that it has in your life, and maybe see what you're going to tune into and what playlists you listen to today.
This has been When East Meets West. I'm Dr. Pete Economo.
And I'm Dr. Nikki Rubin. Be present, be brave.
This has been When East Meets West. All material is based on opinion and educational training of Drs. Pete Economo and Nikki Rubin.
Content is for informational and educational purposes only.